stage door.
5, 4, 3, 2,
1.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Stage Door. This is Dave Hondel. I am so excited tonight. We have Justin Cooper with us, a friend of mine. Justin, thank you for joining me tonight on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Dave, for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Really honored to have you as our first segment of our master class series. We've known each other for a long time. You're a true professional in every sense of the word, and your clients are very, very lucky to have your services. So again, thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much.
You're an international creative consultant and founder and CEO of JOC Media and Entertainment. You wear many hats, of course, in your business. You know, I want to start with your work in the film industry. It definitely spans many levels of budgets, from indie films to major motion pictures. Tell us about your services that you provide for the various studios that you work with.
Thanks, Dave. With JOC Media, we are an international creative consulting agency. We provide film, marketing communications, and music entertainment solutions. To your question specifically about the studios, a portion of the work that I do involves connecting physical production and finance executives at these studios to access to key resources for their respective projects and needs. It could be anything from film-friendly locations, film commissions, production service companies, film incentive programs, production infrastructure, and crew-based accessibility and stage space.
Wow, you definitely do wear many hats. That's a lot. You're also active in a lot of overseas endeavors, you know, from Royal Film Commission in Jordan, where you commute back and forth to quite often, I hear, and also work in Thailand, India, several other locations in the Europe market. Talk about your work in these areas, and, you know, do you need to adjust how you service those markets versus maybe some of the ones that you do here in the U.S.?
Well, most of my work is international. The work that I have done in the U.S. Was for a time period between 2011 to 2014 when I was based in Atlanta, Georgia, working heavily with the Georgia Economic Development Office, their film division, as well as the Economic Development Office of Clayton County. Since that time, living in Los Angeles, as you mentioned, I do a lot of travel to the Middle East and other parts of the world, where I simply promote those countries that you mentioned as filming locations for studios, producers, and filmmakers interested in shooting abroad. It could be anyone from a filmmaker that's looking for a specific landscape that can't be found here in the U.S., or a filmmaker who's looking to take advantage of a country's film incentive program to offset the cost of their production. When I'm working with these professionals, the key focus is identifying their need, which allows me to understand what exactly they're looking to obtain, whether it's a location, whether it's a film incentive, as I mentioned. It just comes down to me listening to the needs of the filmmaker or what the production calls for.
Now, out of curiosity, when you work overseas, you know, I'm guessing that you use a lot of local crew members, talent, maybe location scouting, that type of thing. So when you go out there, do you see that the film industry out there is similar to the film industry here when it comes to collaboration, or is there a difference between the two when you go overseas versus here?
It's very similar. All of the locations that I work with, I'm representing here in Los Angeles, as I said earlier, to promote their specific location, to attract Hollywood to come to their location. So the level of skill has to be at a level that is acceptable, or to say to Hollywood standards. So the skill level that you may find in places like New York or Los Angeles or even Georgia, crew-based skill sets are at the same level in the other markets that I also work with as well.
Now, you've also helped to support a lot of major films like, recently Aladdin and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. How does working with major studios and their budgets promote these monster productions vary from films with average budgets? do you find it easier to work with major budgets, or does it kind of present more challenges to have a bigger budget like that?
Well, obviously, with bigger budgets, comes with that greater ask and demands from the studios because for them, it's an investment. They have larger budgets, and for the territories that I work with, it's an opportunity for economic growth and development. So with Aladdin and with Star Wars, those are tentpole productions. So as I said, larger budgets, they're going to ask for more. Can we have support in this area? Can you give us this? So it's like a song and dance. Ultimately, the goal is for the territory, in this case, Jordan. Jordan really wanted to get Aladdin. They really wanted to get Star Wars because it's very competitive. So you want to, stay within the guidelines of what you have as it pertains to what your film incentive is, but you also want to keep in mind to have some flexibility so that production does not go to a competitive place or a place that has a similar look, because you want to come where you are, because when they come, they spend money, they create jobs, and it's a great way following the production for them to promote that location as a potential film tourism location. People who watch movies are oftentimes curious about where things were shot, and they want to go to where that particular movie they saw was shot. So in working with bigger budgets, as I said, there's oftentimes the expectation that they're going to ask for more, whereas a more modestly priced or budgeted production are not going to have some of the needs or demands of a larger production. But overall, at the end of the day, the goal is to make sure that they have a good experience, because you want them to come back to do business with you. And because Hollywood is very small, everyone talks here. So you want to make sure that you give them a good experience on the front end, because they're going to come back to LA. They're going to talk to their colleagues at competing studios about how their experience was shooting in that particular location. And if it's a good experience, they're going to want to come back to you. And that goes for whether or not it's a major studio like Walt Disney, or if it's a independent producer that's interested in doing business with you.
The other thing you talked about, incentives, and I know at certain times, there are different incentives that maybe states have here in the U.S. When I was growing up in Minneapolis, there was a lot of film being done after Purple Rain was shot there, and there was a lot of incentives and tax breaks given to studios to come to Minneapolis and shoot. So there was the Mighty Ducks movies. There was a lot of movies being shot there at one time, and then a different governor comes in and changes it, and maybe gets rid of the incentives. Then maybe it moves to a Wilmington, North Carolina, New Orleans, Louisiana. I mean, some of the hot spots that are maybe now trying to garner more film coming to their town. So how does that, as far as you and your business, does that make a difference when you're looking at different locations and to film? Would that come into play as far as tax breaks and incentives? Because a lot of times if it, they might give a tax break, but if it doesn't doesn't fit your location, then it doesn't matter at that point. So you want to go to those places that maybe it would fit the location more. But how does that work in your business? I mean, do you look at that?
That's always the first part of the conversation when I'm going in to talk and meet with executives. Of course, locations are very important. Locations I like to consider to be a silent actor in a television show or a feature. It's important because the story may call for a specific look. But at the end of the day, studios want to know, what can we get for bringing our business to your location? It always comes down to incentives. And as you referenced in your question, like states here in the U.S., international markets have to contend with their local legislation regarding whether they're going to keep and modify the incentive, So it's a concern, and it's something that's lobbied for across the board, here in the U.S. as well as internationally, to have a robust film incentive program, because film commissions that manage these funds, or government agencies that support these funds, they recognize the value that the film industry brings to their market, because it creates jobs, and it trickles down to other sectors like tourism. So film incentives are very important. I talk about it often when I go in to meet with executives, and sometimes it just comes down to who has the better incentive. A good example is currently Homeland. Showtime is in its final season. I was in Jordan in 2018 working on another project, and the producers for Homeland were scouting the Middle East. So they were looking at Jordan, they were looking at Morocco, which is another production hub, and it was very close between Morocco and Jordan, and unfortunately, Homeland decided to take their show to Morocco to film its final season. So it's very competitive, and it's something that I talk about or lead with often when I go in to meet with executives.
So it could even change per season.
It can change. It can change per year. As you referenced, depending on whoever comes in. If it's a new administration, they may want to modify it. They may want to reduce it. They may want to get rid of it. Florida is a good example. Florida, I believe, does not have an incentive, and it was a hit show on Netflix. I believe it was called Bloodline. It was shot in the Florida Keys. It was very hard to recreate that look. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the show ended because there was no other place that could be duplicated to look like that part of the country. So incentives are very important. Georgia has done an excellent job with their film incentive program. They don't have a cap. So productions oftentimes choose Georgia as a place to shoot. Georgia has the infrastructure. Tyler Perry just opened up a large studio space. You have Turner Studios there. You have Screen Gems there. So it always comes down to, when I'm in meetings, the incentives, the locations, and do you have the crew base and infrastructure to facilitate a large production coming in and working there for, in many cases, weeks or months at a time.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is my third podcast in a row that Atlanta was brought up as a place to go to, to be in film, music. I mean, everything is there in Atlanta. And we have, being in the New York area here, we have a very saturated market, and a lot of artists will flock here to either be in theater, film, TV, or LA, of course. But I think there's a missing market for a lot of people that, that Atlanta is one of the biggest major entertainment markets there is. And so for our listeners out there, keep that in mind. If you're looking for somewhere to live, there's a lot of opportunities in Atlanta, like you said, Justin. So that's amazing. How does social media, I like talking about social media on my podcast too, but how does social media change the game when it comes to the marketing of any of the projects that you're working with? I mean, is it getting easier, or is it, again, like anything else, gets more competitive when you throw in, the fact that everybody has social media? Does that help you, or again, is that challenging?
It's, media is very saturated. You have to cut through the noise to get whatever you're communicating in the forefront. My work in film is mainly in person. It's more of an in-person game. I'm strategically placed in Los Angeles, so a simple phone call or email can get me a meeting on, at Netflix or in the lot of Paramount or Warner Brothers. With social media for my other clients outside of film, I work with nonprofits and corporate clients that do rely more so on communicating or articulating their message on social media. And it comes down to creating content that is engaging, that is succinct and to the point. And in my time, in my life previously, when I was the marketing communications manager for a large health system, always having a call to action. You want to read, be engaged, and to follow up with whatever you're posting. So it could be you post something and you want them to be driven to your website for more information. You want them to register for something. You may have an event coming up. So social media is definitely useful. It's a useful tool. It's a economical tool. It's more affordable than traditional marketing. You know, it's more expensive to take out a radio ad or a print ad or an outdoor billboard. Whereas with social media, a large portion of the population are on social media. Most people are tethered to their devices, whether it's their laptop or their phone. So you can, reach an audience, a broad audience at any time on social media. And it's definitely been beneficial to my work as a professional and servicing my clients.
It just, like you said, has to be done in the right way. And, everybody has social media, and, you'll see some of the successful people have many, many followers or many, likes or hits on their posts. And it's a matter of knowing how to work the social media, like you said. And I think that was very valuable, the lesson that you just gave to our listeners. So thank you for that. We talked about you wearing many, many hats, and some of those hats are publicists and journalists, among many others. You've had some pieces that you've written, published in some major publications like the New York Times, Variety, Hollywood Reporter. And has this helped you gain additional contacts with some of the other production companies out there?
As you said, I do wear different hats, and sometimes the hats overlap, and sometimes they don't. I would say for my film industry work, not so much. I would say most of the work that I have done as a publicist or working in publicity has been to promote the markets that we referenced earlier. One of the last publications that I think I was featured in, I think it was Variety. I attended the Asian film market in Busan, South Korea last year, and I had to give a presentation to Korean filmmakers and other participants that attended the event about the benefits of filming in Jordan. And a reporter for Variety was in the audience. So of course he was chronicling what I was talking about pertaining to locations and film incentives and infrastructure. And he had follow-up questions for me after my presentation. So my work with the media is oftentimes associated with me participating at an event like the American Film Market. And years ago, when I was working with an organization called the Association of Film Commissioners International, I had lots of dealings with the trades being publications that focus on a particular industry or area. So Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, Screen International, I would work with them to cover events that we had, whether it was the location show where film commissions globally would come to Los Angeles to promote their locations and connect with Hollywood. I would facilitate interviews and deal with the media pertaining to those particular locations. So my work with the media has been to promote locations, to talk about incentives, and of course, for my other clients that are not film related, securing them media, dealing with crisis communications. You mentioned the New York Times. I was working with Ann Nesby, Grammy Award-winning recording artist that you're familiar with, and maybe some of your listeners are. We had an issue with someone claiming copyright infringement a couple of years ago, and I had to deal with the New York Times because they were doing a piece on the story. So interacting with the media, whether it's local media or national or international media, it's definitely something that I've been working on and dealing with for many years. And it's definitely a tool that I find useful in promoting, the work that I do for the clients that I serve.
Yeah. You mentioned Ann Nesby, and that's where you and I met on the set 12 years ago. And I apologize, and boy, I can't believe it's already been 12 years. But you're part of her Grammy-winning team, and I guess for our listeners, what do you do for the music artists out there? And how has the business changed for you personally? Since the age of digital downloads and social media, it's really experienced an evolution, right?
Yeah, the entertainment industry overall has changed dramatically. I started out in entertainment 20 years ago. It doesn't seem that long ago. It's changed tremendously, as I said. I recall when I began working with Ann, record labels at the time had larger budgets. So it wasn't a big deal for the record label to finance a trip and the band, the team around her to do shows, to promote the projects that were coming out. And my experience over 10 years from the time I started working with her, budgets increasingly got smaller, and a lot of things we had to do internally because there just wasn't a budget in place to do some of the extravagant things that we would do earlier on before the transition from physical to digital. It has leveled the playing field. Now, as an independent artist, Ann is able to get her music out directly to consumers. And going back to your social media question, it is a tool that is used to promote new music that's coming, or if Ann or any artist is doing a show, it's a great way to connect with your fans directly, to get them engaged on whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's, like I said, doing a concert, or if you're trying to raise capital to put out a project through crowdfunding. Social media platform to do that. And as I said, the digital age has leveled the playing field. Budgets, unfortunately, have gotten smaller, but you have more control over your intellectual property, whether that's your music, or whether that's your film, or whether it's a book or a publication that you want to put out. You have the power to put it out. You don't have to go through a middleman to get that done. So that is how it has revolutionized entertainment and have made things more accessible to independent artists and even more established artists.
Yeah, I mean, I just in the last 10 years, last decade, I mean, the age of CDs are almost gone. The age of recording studios they're closing left and right. Even Jersey and New York, there's very, very few recording studios even left. So it really has changed, and with the digital downloads, and I think for some respect, like we were talking about, it really for the indie artists, it's actually a good thing because it gives them a platform to put their music out, Spotify and all the other streaming services. So I think it's good. But again, it really does level that playing field. So some people that maybe back 20 years ago that were discovered, I guess, and put out by a big label, more people have that chance now as indie artists to not only be discovered but discover themselves.
To piggyback off of that and to answer a question, part of the question that I omitted, outside of the work that I've done for Ann pertaining to publicity and marketing, I've also had opportunity to write for Ann and to learn the craft of songwriting and the importance for artists that are maybe listening to get involved with a performing rights organization, whether it's ASCAP, CSAC, or BMI. I had the pleasure and honor to work with Ann on a recording for another artist by the name of Tom Scott. And when I was 24 years old, I was able to garner an ASCAP Plus award for, being a new songwriter. So definitely taking advantage of the resources that performing rights organizations have. in New York, their offices in New York, their offices in Nashville, their offices in Atlanta, their offices in Los Angeles. So if your listeners, if they are independent artists, if they're not familiar with performing rights organizations, it's something they should definitely look up, contact their local office, get involved. There are oftentimes many workshops that these performing rights organizations host. And it's definitely a great resource to help them learn the business and get their project out there. And lastly, I've been able to transition from my work with Ann to work with some labels and to most recently get into music supervision, which is another great avenue for independent artists to get their music out. Everything that you watch on television, from commercials to TV shows to movies, incorporate music. Music is needed, whether it's the music bed for a soundtrack or a specific song that's needed. Artists do have another platform to get the music out there, whether they work with a music supervisor, which that's the type of work that I do, and placing music for commercials and et cetera, or getting their music into a music library. Those are great tools in addition to putting your music out on Spotify and these other digital platforms and doing concert dates. Definitely exploring and exploiting their music through television and film is a great way to get out there and to make money.
So what are some important words of advice from a public relations aspect of the business that you might have for some of our indie artists out there that are listening?
I would say think of the microphone being always on. So being mindful of the things that you post on social media, because we live in an age where people dig up skeletons. So making sure that you haven't said anything that's been derogatory or inflammatory, against any person or group, because you don't want negative publicity to overshadow something positive that you're trying to do. So being mindful of the communication that you're putting out into the world, that goes, because it's a reflection of your personal and professional brand. Being respectful, being mindful and thoughtful of how you communicate, that's all I have on that. Just being mindful of the messaging that you're putting out there, because you don't want negative messaging to overshadow what you're trying to do, which is put art into the world.
I mean, that's a good point, because even big artists out there, major celebrities, have one misstep on social media, and they might not be working again. And
if an artist has the ability to, if they can hire someone that is skilled in the area of social media, or hire a spokesperson or publicist, that would be a buffer between them and the media and the public, because if you hire someone that's skilled in that area, they can articulate better. If you're not a person that is comfortable in doing that stuff, having a person dedicated to doing that will make your life so much easier, where you can just focus on that art that you're putting out.
Absolutely. Have the professionals do it. Call Justin. Work with his organization, because it's definitely going to help you as an artist for sure. What current projects are you working on right now, Justin?
Well, right now, due to COVID-19, unfortunately, lots of work has slowed down, but that does not mean I have not been busy. I am in my 4th month of my micro publication called Soliviant. It's a lifestyle publication where I focus on people that are taking the road less traveled, and they're doing it their own way. I'm on my 4th issue. I'm getting ready to work on my 5th issue, which is going to be a special issue where I'm going to interview various people from around the globe that I've met through my travels, to get their perspective on and their experience, well, document their experience and perspective as how they are managing living through this pandemic, because a large portion of the world is on lockdown or shelter-in-place orders. So I just want to get their perspective. I want to document it because we are in unprecedented times, and it's historic, and I want to have something tangible to look back on to say, I remember when this happened and where these people were when this happened. I'm working on that for right now. Everything's kind of slowed down.
Yeah, hopefully this passes so we can all go back to, doing what we do the best. So how can people find you if they're interested in your services?
Easiest way is to go to my website. My website is jocmedia.com. When you're there, you could see what I do in the areas of film, marketing communications, and music entertainment. You can access all of my social media platforms from my website. I am on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. You can find me there. Everything that you would want to know, you can find at jocmedia.com.
All right, Justin. Well, thank you so much for your insight and for being on the Stage Door Show tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time to give us your expertise, and I certainly hope to have you on a future podcast here on the Stage Door Show.
Thank you so much, Dave, for having me, and I wish success to all of your audience members that are in the arts and music, television, and film.
Thank you so much, Justin, and continued success to you, and please stay safe out there during this pandemic.
You too. Bye-bye.